Hey guys, what's going on? This is Kyle here with Gnarly Knives. I know it's been a while, but I haven't forgot about everyone. I'm still here. But I've got a cool video I'm actually pretty excited about today. I've been thinking about this video for a couple weeks now. Just been kind of thinking about how I want to go about it because it's a little different than my usual. So normally, the channel Gnarly Knives and Outdoors and stuff, so I guess it fits in a little bit with the outdoor part, but mainly I just do knife reviews, stuff like that, sharpening, pretty much anything to do with knives, and this is no exception at all. But this is also, instead of just reaching out to fellow knife nerds and knife enthusiasts, I think this will also may be useful and helpful to some of our people out there who really enjoy gardening, things outdoors, not necessarily bushcraft. Going out in the woods, though that is very near and dear to my heart. And yeah, I'm sure these knives will be pretty good for that too, especially with a couple of the qualities that a couple of these that I'm going to show have. But really kind of wanted to branch out a little bit with this video because I think it, for one, people who just collect knives, it'll just be cool things to add to the collection. And for people who do a lot of gardening, even as a profession, especially, it would be great, or just people who do backyard gardening, things with trees, anything of that sort. So, what I've always thought about was when it comes to, outdoor knives and stuff, especially things you're using with, with gardening, anything if, you're trimming something small, you want something that you don't have to really worry about. It's definitely getting used and abused. Something that if, you maybe leave out or something you forget about, it rains, you don't have to worry about getting all rusted. And I think that's what a couple of these knives have about them that I think will make them very appealing to anyone that is worried or a little forgetful and forgets to leave their knife out or something. I think these are something that have some great attributes that will be helpful. So basically the two main knives I'm talking about, and then I have some other knives that they also make in these steels and in these kind of platforms. But the first one is one I got a few weeks ago, and I will eventually do a full review on this. But just for the sake of this video, I guess you could look at it a little bit of it as a first impression. But it's really just to discuss more the fundamentals and the utilityness of the knife and what it makes it so great for this aspect versus whether it's a good knife or not, which I do think it is very much a good knife. Like I said, I've had it for a couple weeks now. So the first one is a Spyderco knife. Now this is one of their Salt series of knives. This is actually their new. They just came out with this newer platform of the Salt series in the last maybe 4 to 6 months. But this is the Atlantic. Yes, it is the Atlantic Salt 2. And this, what I really like is it's a little different than most knives. I mean, especially people who really aren't into knives as much will probably notice right away there's no belly and there's no real tip on it. It does have a tip, but it's not, as opposed to something that's, you think we'll use the paramilitary too. You think it's a very pronounced, comes right to a tip and you've got the belly. But with this, now Spyderco calls this a sheep's foot. I would consider this more of a Wharncliffe. I mean, I definitely, with that kind of rounded snub tip on it, yeah, I guess it's a little bit like a sheep's foot, but sheep's foot I'm more familiar with tend to have a little bit of belly at the very end of the knife. But, that's what they call it, so we'll call it a sheep's foot. I think of it more as a Wharncliffe, but that's all right. But this steel is called LC200N, and this steel will not rust. It won't. It literally will not rust. And that's one of the things with this Salt series is they have, I think, more, fishermen, people on the ocean, or even divers, people who spend a lot of time around, corrosive environments. So, obviously think ocean fishermen, divers, anything of that sort, mariners. So what's really cool with that is that this steel literally will not rust. You drop this in the ocean, pick it up in 6 months, it won't rust. The action I'm sure won't be too great, might need to clean it up and oil it a bit, but this blade will not be covered in rust. And another one that they have is a much smaller knife, but this one is well, I think this is just the regular. This is part of their old line. But this one is their Dragonfly Salt version. So this here also has a steel that will not rust. But this is a different steel. This one is called H1 steel. And I've seen read a few things that, if either one of these were to be put to like super severe corrosiveness or corrosive environments, this one would probably fare a little better in that sense, where neither one of these really will rust, but if one was going to rust, the LC200N theoretically could rust sooner. I don't really think that would be the thing. I have thought about maybe trying my own little steel rust corrosion tests with these. And when I do, as I am very curious to do that, I will absolutely do a video and let you guys know the results and what I found. But the big main difference with them that I've found is more edge retention. So the LC200N will definitely hold its edge a good amount longer than the H1 will. But both you're getting insane stainlessness. And the only thing I think that I should have added a minute ago, maybe add a bit to that, this one is less likely to rust, neither one of them really should rust. If you look up the makeup on them, of what, the alloys and stuff used to make this steel what they are, LC200N has 0.3% carbon in it, which is an extremely low amount. Most steels, even, use 1095 as an example, I think is like 0.9% carbon. A lot of steels you'll find are around 1%, which doesn't sound like that much to begin with, but in the overall, in the metallurgical aspect of it, it is a decent amount of carbon. But this only is 0.3%, so it is a minuscule amount, even by those, 1% steel knives. And the H1 steel has about 0.15 carbon, so it has half the carbon in it. And, of course, carbon is what makes anything able to rust, not just knives. Just anything that has carbon in it has the ability to rust. But these have a lot of other alloys in them, and a lot of things that I really am not able to pronounce. I'm not going to begin to try to, but if you look up either of these steels, LC200N or H1 steel, you will find full diagrams with percentages, amounts, everything that is in the steels and what they do. Now, like I said, I do have a couple other examples. They do make tons of different ones. Like, this isn't the only, old school salt knife, and this isn't the only new one. They do have a range of all different sizes. I mean, of course, this is a very small knife. I think the blade is only about, I'd say maybe 2.5 inches, and probably a little less than 2 inches of an actual cutting edge. And then this one, I would say about probably closer to 3.5 inches, and probably a little over, right about 3 inches of an actual cutting edge. So it is definitely a larger knife. And what I think is kind of cool too, actually, the handle profiles. This, I guess, more for the knife nerds. It actually reminds me very much of the paramilitary too. The handles are very, very similar. So much so, it honestly looks like if they ever did a lightweight version of the paramilitary too, like they have with the Para 3, I feel like it would pretty much be something like this, but of course it would be more this blade shape than this. But they do offer a wide range of different sizes. Now, granted, I prefer straight or plain edge, so I'm not really big with serrated knives, but they make serrated versions of all of these knives. At least full serration. I know with, regular knives, they can get, it'll be like a small part of the blade will be serrated, and then the rest of it will be plain edge. What I've noticed anyway, it seems like a lot of the salt knives are either fully serrated or fully plain edge. So that there, I think, would be, more up to you to decide. The fully serrated, I think that would be good, especially if someone is working on a boat or, dealing with a lot of rope and cutting a lot of rope all the time. Then, yeah, I think the serrated would probably be good to go. Or, get one plain edge and get one serrated. That'd be up to you. But they do have different sizes. Now, like I said, this being the original salt version with the H1 steel, they do also offer, Now this is another Spyderco, the Delica, but they offer this same knife with this steel. So it would be, the yellow with the H1 steel. I mean, this one is a different variant of it. This has a different steel and also, obviously different color handle. But they also have, if you do want something that's larger, and this is actually what I was originally trying to find, was this one, but I couldn't find it, and I ended up going with the Atlantic Salt 2 that I just showed, which I'm actually kind of glad I did. Not to say I wouldn't try and get one of these if one came right across my path. But then if you do want something that does have a longer blade, a good size knife, they also make, this is the Endura 4, but they also make Pacific and Atlantic Salt versions of them. I mean, basically to break it down with the original ones, so I believe, see, it's not, alright, sometimes they say on them, I believe this is the original Atlantic Salt, or this is the original Pacific Salt. The Pacific Salt line, they both have the same steels. The difference is just the color of the handle, and they still make, or at the very least, you're able to find both online. So you can either get it, it's an all black handle with the black screws and everything, or the yellow handle with the black screws. The black one's the Atlantic Salt, the yellow one's the Pacific Salt. That's the only difference there, is just the color of the handles. And some of the Atlantic Salt with the black handles, I believe you can get some of them with the black blade coating. With the new ones, it just seems like they're just going, all of them are green. This with their new version. So whether it's Atlantic or Pacific Salt, because this is the Atlantic Salt 2, and the new version of this is the Pacific Salt 2. I'm sorry, I keep mixing up. But they're the same handle, color, and everything else. Just, of course, the blade are shaped differently. Now, with these knives, what I was saying is with, the stainlessness. But what is it that makes them different? Like, oh, they won't stain, but they're stainless. Other steels are stainless steels. These aren't the only stainless steels. And the best way I can put it, I don't remember who I had heard put it this way, but it might have actually been Nick Shabazz. Also another great channel, if you guys ever interested in more knife reviews, and he does a lot of disassembly stuff. You can check out Nick Shabazz. But if you think of stainless as stains less, so a good example would be this here. So this is the Paramilitary 2, but this is the S110V version. This one, it is a stainless steel, but this steel will rust. It's not like a carbon steel. It won't rust as fast. You could get this wet and close it and forget about it. And you might get a couple little speckles, but you won't, it won't be covered in rust and pitted unless you left it for a very long time. As opposed to something that is a carbon steel. And I guess to maybe, for the non-typical knife, or the non-knife people that may be watching this, it's what we said about the carbon. Now, stainless steels do have carbon, but they also have something in it that offsets it. And I'm sure there are tons of different things that they can add to create a more stainless steel. But typically, it's chromium. And the more chromium, generally speaking, a knife has, the more stainless it is. So, typically, any steel that has 13% chromium or more will be a stainless knife, and anything with 12% or less is considered non-stainless. Now, of course, there are, variants and stuff like that. I can use an example, this Endura 4 that I was showing. This has a steel called ZDP 189. Now, this has 20% chromium in it, but this is not a stainless steel. This steel absolutely will rust, and I have gotten it to rust on me a couple times. Not intentionally, just it has. But this has an insane amount of carbon in it. So this has about 3% carbon. So this has, as opposed to, say, the LC200N, this has 10 times, is it? That's probably more than that. 0.3. No, that's right. This has 10 times the amount of carbon than this does. But it has so much chromium. Why is it still? But it's because the carbon eats up a lot of the chromium. And I don't know if I was like thinking too, how much into the metallurgy, how much into knife steel should I go into? Because I feel like I'm kind of walking a line with, trying to appeal with like the knife people and try and, appeal to, people who not really into knives but just want something that's a good knife. Who a lot of the stuff might just be going right over the head, which is absolutely fine. So I do apologize for that. But getting back to just the actual knives themselves, because I feel like for a lot of people that are watching this, if you're not watching this just because, oh, it's just a cool knife I want to add to the collection, but just like, all right, what makes these knives good for, usage outside. And that's what I think I should probably focus a bit more on. I mean, I have, dozens of other videos where I go into a lot of this stuff, and I do encourage you to check those out. But my favorite, I think, out of these is definitely this, the Atlantic Salt 2. I think a lot of it is just having that, Wharncliffe blade. What I do think is nice about it is that you do definitely have a tip. So, if opening up bags of, mulch, compost, dirt, whatever, you have that point so you can, make the incision and slice right through. But I can also then use this, and like earlier, I trimmed a couple of, I had a little, like, I don't know what you call them, just like little suckers growing on one of my, I have one lime tree. But on my lime tree, I noticed I had some suckers starting to grow on them, so I just took this and just, was able to take them right off cleanly. And the thing is, I had to be careful because one of them was coming out where one of the branches are. I didn't want to slice into the branch. But I just, I had this and I just wanted to use this. But what was nice is I was able to, say if my thumb is the little sucker or shoot that was coming off I wanted to cut, and this was the branch, they were pretty much, a millimeter apart from each other. But I was able to just come right up. I was, press this up against that branch and just come right down in a quick motion. It took the sucker off, didn't damage the branch. So I was like, all right, that's pretty cool. That's one thing I do like about it. Because originally I got this just because, I don't know, it's a cool knife, it's a cool steel. I wanted to add LC200 into the collection. It was also the same reason I got this, the Dragonfly, which is the, I think I probably already mentioned, but, is the, if you don't get the salt version of it, it's called the Dragonfly. But with this, it does have those good attributes. It's stainless and all that. And you could still do that same thing that I did, but you would have to be much more careful because now you're coming to a nice sharp point or tip. And, I could have very easily, just if, I don't know, it was a little bit harder to cut and then I had to, rock a little bit, I could have jabbed into the branch. And I just want to avoid that. I mean, would the branch be fine? Yeah, more than likely. But why take the chance? But what is nice about that, though, is just that you do not have to worry about these knives. Because something I've noticed just, in general, just through life or whatever, a lot of people have gardens. It's, a pretty popular thing. But whenever you see their knife that they have, a little garden bench or in their shed, they're always covered in rust. And it would just, it's okay if it works for you. I mean, who am I to judge? But it's just something I've noticed. So it's something nice that you do not have to worry about. And also, too, these knives, because I've sharpened both of them now. Actually, this one a couple times. Just more for fun. Because they come really sharp out of the box. That's one thing Spyderco is, pretty unanimous for. Or, yeah, pretty famous for. And most people seem to unanimously agree. But Spyderco, their knives are very sharp out of the box. You can just pop it out of the box and go right to work. But these did need some work. Or, not, they didn't need some work. I wanted to put in some work, so that's why, I sharpened it. I was like, all right, yeah, cool. And then I just, for fun, put a little mirror polish on it. But they're very easy to sharpen, especially this one. Any of them, if you get in the H1 steel, are very easy to sharpen. So that is really cool. But I did notice, though, with using them, this one will stay sharp probably twice as long, if not longer. But if you do sharpen, and that's not a problem, go with this one. Now, another thing I feel like I should discuss, though, is price. Because these are not very cheap knives. They're not very expensive knives. Yeah, I guess that's subjective. It depends. Because for some people, especially with custom knives, you can spend several hundred, $1,000+ dollars. So buying any of these knives, is chump change. Um, and I do have some knives that are more expensive than these, but those are not knives I buy very often because they are expensive. Um, so a lot of it really depends on the size of it overall. So this little salt dragonfly, this one was about $75. Yeah, I know. They do have smaller versions of this. I believe the man bug and the ladybug that you can get that are, but they're still smaller than this. Those I believe you can get at about the $55 to $60 range. So I mean it's a little bit better. Um, Now the versions of those, as either this the Delica 4 or this the Endura 4. Yeah, you're still looking around $100 for either the new versions or the old versions. Depending, this one will probably be a little less. They're about $10 apart. This one, maybe the 90 to 100 range, maybe 110 depending where you go. This one will be probably in the 110 to $120 range. The serrated versus plain edge doesn't really make much of a difference that I've noticed in price. This one here, the Atlantic Salt 2, the new one, this one did cost a little more. I think it was about $125. So I get it. That is a bit of a jump versus just buying a cheap knife for $15 or less at Walmart or wherever. But what you are paying for too is you are definitely paying for some provenance, of course. But you're also paying for good quality materials. Now, these handles are made from, and not that these are super fancy materials, they make cheap knives with these handle materials. The FRN, which is fiberglass reinforced nylon. But it's not what you're paying for, really, is the handle. If they put like G10 handles on this, you probably add $50 to that price. Excuse me. But you're paying for the steel. Now, because this is a steel, like, I had mentioned 1,000 times, it's not going to rust, and it will hold its edge for a good long time. This is something that will put a lot of work in for you, and I think it really lends itself useful to that gardening, outdoor type of lifestyle, or just environments in general. And what's cool, too, is it's not like, if you get it for gardening, you can only do it for that. I mean, if you want to throw it in your tackle box, if you're going fishing or if you're going hiking or whatever, But that's one of the reasons why I'm really glad I ended up going with this one, because this is something great that I can use for like gardening, outdoor stuff, using for pretty much whatever I need it to. What I got this one for, oh geez, I almost lost you, sorry. Gotta duck down a bit, I get you stacked up a little bit. What I got this one for, the Dragonfly, just because, well, one, it's small and I didn't have H1 in my collection, but because it's little and it's light, it is very light. These don't even have liners in them, so they are very light. But this is great. This is something I can tuck in my bathing suit, because I've never been in a scenario where I was like swimming or anything where I'm like, oh, I wish I had a knife. But it's just, for me, part of it's just because it's silly, because a lot of people that know me, like, oh, Kyle's the knife guy, he's always got a knife. So part of it was just for the novelty of it. But then at the same time, I don't know. I'm not a big beach person, but if I ever, I don't know, the extreme example I can use, if I was ever attacked by a shark, I'd probably die. But if I can get a couple of stabs in, now granted, yeah, I mean, you're not going to do that much damage. You're not going to kill him with this, but I can maybe get him in the eye, or just, hurt him enough that he'll let go and take off. Probably end up bleeding out by the time I get there, but then that day my kids can avenge me, and they can look and find the one-eyed shark that killed their old man. They can use this knife to gut him when they're done. But I really hope that this was helpful and informational for you guys, the knife people, and also, the outdoor gardening people. I know a lot of it was kind of the back and forth, so I hope I wasn't losing either side too much. I was just, like I said, for the last couple of weeks, I've been really thinking about this video and just trying to think of all the ways I can kind of blend everything together so that even if I'm kind of veering a little off more towards the gardening or veering off a little more towards the knife enthusiast people, that I'm not losing the other side too much. Hopefully that wasn't the case. But I really think these are a good thing to consider. But like I said, I understand the price too. Because I do have another option here, which actually is made and sold as a gardening knife. There's actually this French company called Opinel. A lot of people, especially in the knife community, are probably very familiar with these because these are pretty cheap knives you can get. Most of them you can get for under 25 bucks, and they come in a range of sizes. You can get, really teeny tiny ones on keychains. Too. They even make one, the Opinel 13. The blade is like 13 inches long. Again, it's more of a novelty, but still very silly. But this one, and this is actually the smaller version. They have a larger version, but these are the Opinel gardening knife. And see, it's kind of a cool shape. Now this I did modify a little bit. This I did put a point on it. You can probably kind of make out a little bit. This was just completely rounded off. When I got it, I was just having fun with a file. I put a point on it. And this isn't the original finish. I sanded it down, made it a little smoother, and then I treated it with some boiled linseed oil and Danish oil. Just kind of mixed. Or I did a layer one, a layer another. Just kind of messing around. I'm happy how it came out. But this is very good as well. I've used this. This, might even, in a sense, be a little bit easier. Having that curvature, if you're coming up behind something and pulling it, having that, that wildly curved edge will probably give you, a little extra leverage on a cut or something, But I put the point too for that same, opening bags and stuff. And the same too with, I have a greenhouse for growing plants, and that but when I do the greenhouse, I wrap it in plastic and stuff. But it's good to have this or a knife with a point, and I can make little slices and slashes in them, just for ventilation. Don't want to deal with mold, not at all. I hate mold, especially on my plants. But at the same time, though, while these do come pretty sharp, and this is just a regular standard stainless steel, I'm not really actually sure what it's called. Opinel doesn't really release what it's not like something is common. I think they use their own steel, so it's probably not something you'd really find on other knives. I forget what their carbon steel is called. I think it might be like C15 or something like that. If you do know what it's called, please let me know in the comments below. But it's the same with their stainless as far as I know. So this will definitely rust easier versus, say, the knives I had already shown. But it's a hell of a lot cheaper. I think this was about 25 to 30 bucks. I did buy this a little over a year ago. Of course, prices always fluctuate. But they have an even larger version. If this isn't big enough for you, they do have a larger one, where it's probably about 1.5 times the size. So, it probably comes up to about here, and that blade probably comes out maybe another 3/4 of an inch. That one's probably like $5-10 more. So if this is 25 to 30, yeah, that one I'd say is probably like 30 to 35. But still, really not bad at all. And at that price, if you ruin it, I guess you can buy 5 of these for what it would cost to buy 1 of these, or 3 of these to buy, 1 of these. So of course, that does come down to preference. You'll definitely need to be sharpening this more, though, that's for sure. And it will definitely be a little more of a pain to sharpen unless you have round, ceramic rods or sharpening rods of any kind. Yeah, because you can't use this on stones. You'll ruin the knife and the stones. But overall, though, like I said, I really hope that this was informational for you guys. Please let me know what you guys thought. If you've heard of these knives before, or if you'd consider buying these knives. Or what you guys like using in the garden. It might be a fixed blade. What kind of fixed blade do you guys like using? And something stronger even, But I really hope you guys let me know what you think. I hope you let me know what kind of knives you guys use or would use in an outdoor setting that isn't necessarily, camping, bushcraft, out in the woods kind of thing, or, fishing, anything like that. Because I think it's good with this. We all learn, kind of get ideas from each other, inspire one another. So I really appreciate you guys sticking around, especially if you've stayed as long as you have. Looks like on my phone we're coming up on 30 minutes. So you are a trooper. I appreciate if you've stuck around this long. And please, like the video or dislike it. Just, thumb up or thumb down if you liked it or not. Please leave a comment. Please share this. I would love to really get this video out. That's one thing I was excited about this video as opposed to a lot of the other ones. Because it's, something I realized with doing knife videos, it's very niche. I can never pronounce it. It's a small demographic, which is fine. I'm not doing it to make millions. If I did, I wouldn't be doing it in my garage on my phone. But I do it because it is fun. I do have a lot of fun doing it. But if I can get these to reach out to a lot more people, then I think that would be awesome. I've even been thinking of trying to maybe branch out and do a little bit of adding some of the outdoor to the gnarly knives and outdoors. Especially some more like gardening out like. Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with trees and plants, and I just love all of that stuff. So guys, please like, share the video, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'm really, really glad that you guys came along. Hope anybody didn't think I was like giving up on YouTube. It's just been really, really crazy. Everything going on in the world, but not even just that, just family, kids. But my heart is still in it 100%. It's just things have been kind of nuts, the last several months. But I'm trying to make it on the opposite. But I just realized I have bongs in the background of this whole time. Huh. Do I have to add a warning to the video now? Whatever. Anyway, guys, thank you, and have a good one. Remember to keep carving and stay sharp. Peace.